How are y'all doing this morning? It was so awesome to be able to surprise you guys and show up last night after I said I wasn't going to be there. You're welcome. I was in zombie form. Any of y'all ever been camping with the Boy Scouts? It's exhausting, especially when you're like, my age and you're sleeping on a cot, and that hurts. And yeah, I'm going to stop complaining because it was fun. I enjoyed the time with the kids. I had some great conversation with some young men. And you can't ever take that away, so it's awesome. My iPad might catch up with me here soon. Anyways, good morning. I'm Pastor John. I'm the lead pastor here at New Day Church. If you didn't know that, you do now. And we're in week two of a series called Love and Respect, and where we're walking you through this dynamic, which we'll get to in a second. But first, I need to say good morning to everybody. If you're joining us online, good morning. Thanks for joining us online. We are so glad you're with us this morning. And I have one question before we get started, and that question is, how many of you did your homework? It's all right. And so nobody wants to do homework. It's like being in school. Who does that junk, right? Come on. Well, awesome if you did. Kudos to you. Now, here's a question for you. How many of you had to get help with your homework? No, I didn't. I have a list already. So anyway, homework. Now, here's another question. How many of you guys, when you got your letter, it didn't sound very loving or respectful? Don't raise your hands to that one. Stop. No, let's not get there. We're going to learn that. That's where we're heading now, okay? I'm going to teach you guys how to speak love and how to speak respect, vice versa, like what you need to learn, right? But before we get to that, let's recap where we left off last week. Ephesians 5:33 says this is where the whole thing stems from. Paul writing to the church at Ephesus. Paul, who wasn't a Christian, hated Christians, tried to kill Christians, did kill Christians, and then God smacked him in the face and said, hey, what are you doing? And then he became one of the biggest Christians. Like he even said, I'm the biggest sinner, but look at what God's done in my life. What a testimony, right? Paul, he said this, so again, I say each man must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. So obviously there's some kind of difference between love and respect, and why men are called to love and women are called to respect, okay? And we talked about how 83% of men, while in conflict with their wives, or a female typically, felt disrespected by the person involved. And 72% of women in conflict with their husband or another male felt unloved. So while in conflict, the felt need is different between men and women. That men at the core of who they are, as God designed them, need to feel respected for who they are in God's image. And women at the core of who they are, as God designs, have to feel this love for them as God has designed them. And when she doesn't get what she needs, she's going to react in a way that seems disrespectful. And when he doesn't get what he needs, he's going to react in a way that doesn't feel loving. And we called this what? The crazy cycle, right? That without love, she reacts without respect. And then without respect, he reacts without love. And then all of a sudden you get this thing spinning, and it's like a hamster in a wheel, just like he can't get off, and he's, like he's stuck, right? And until we can change our perspective, until we can look through the lens that the other person is looking through and start looking through the lens of that person sitting opposite us in that conflict, we're never going to be able to break that cycle. So here, that leads us to the $1 million question. If we break the cycle, then what? John, how do I motivate my wife to respect me? How do I motivate my husband to love me? Well, it starts by understanding this simple truth right here. Your response is your responsibility. How you respond to being disrespected or unloved in any relationship, marriage, mom, dad, whatever it is, any relationship, your response to that situation is 100% your responsibility. Ladies, when he's being a complete jerk and be completely unloving, and you react without respect, which happens, you know how I know it happens? Because I preached the entire crazy cycle on Sunday. On Monday, me and my wife were taking a spin on the crazy cycle. And I'm up here talking to you about it. I said something, she said something, she started talking to Sharon, I believe it was Sharon, and the next thing I know, we're okay. Because you know what I mean? Like, that should be encouraging to you. That even me and Carol, who are so passionate about this, we still get on this wheel and just start spinning. Right? And whoever decides that they're going to be the mature one has to start owning their part of the fight, their part of the conflict. And this is simple. It sounds so simple by owning up to your part in the conflict. But there's this powerful thing that happens. Proverbs says this: he mocks proud mockers, but shows favor to the humble and oppressed. So when you're in conflict with your spouse, if you could become the humble one or the mature one, as we called it, if you humble yourself to the point of owning your part in the conflict, it has this super, super powerful and super profound result in your relationship. And one of the ways you could do is simply by asking this question. You ready? This might be worth the cost of admission, which was free anyways, okay? Did I come across as unloving or disrespectful? Did I just come across as unloving or disrespectful? That was not my intent. Can you please forgive me? Simple. Simple. But here's the cool thing. The first statement shows that the other person in the conflict with you, you understand that their felt need isn't your felt need. Did I just come across as unloving? You're speaking to what her true love language is, her language. You're speaking pink. We'll get to that. Did I come across as disrespectful? You're speaking blue. You're using words that are going to be like, what? Then the second part helps you take ownership for your part in the fight, your action. That wasn't my intent. I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry that I didn't know how to speak pink at that second. Can you forgive me? Now here's the trick. This is my favorite part of it. After you say it, shut up and walk away. That's all. Stop. And guys, when you do this, research has showed that besides the fact that you're going to have to help your wife up off the ground because she's not going to know who you are and what just happened, right? Besides that point, in most cases, women at this point will almost immediately turn to self-blame and try to put the whole fight on themselves. That's what research shows. Because that's the way they're wired. And you won't, again, in most cases, even make it out of the door where the fight is happening before she's coming after you to connect. In most cases. Now, ladies, us guys, we don't move that fast. You're probably going to make it out of the room, into another room, when out of nowhere, he's going to be standing there. And he's going to offer you a drink. And he's going to ask you, hey, do you want to watch the game with him? But you're like, what just happened? We'll explain that next week. Right? Because remember, it's not wrong, it's just different. Your response can't be, well, you're just going to do that because, now again, going into this next week with this information, you cannot, ladies, guys, you cannot respond like this. You cannot say, well, you're just saying that because Pastor John told you to. Stop. No. Like, no, that's not why you're doing it, right? And you got to look, have they ever done it before? Have they ever owned their actions in the fight and then asked you to forgive them before in their life? Well, then no, they're not doing it because I told them to. They're doing it because they want to get off this crazy cycle and cause something different. They're trying to, as we like to say in our Marco Polo throw with the guys, change the recipe to get a different result. So let me ask you this. Would they have ever said that before I told them to say that? If I never told them or gave them the words to say something that in both voiced their felt need and their remorse for seeing that their words or actions came across as blue instead of pink or pink instead of blue, if I had never told them that, would they ever use those words? Now, this doesn't excuse the other person from their action. I'm not saying that. but it moves everything into a positive motion. So the crazy cycle is this negative thing, right? Without love, he reacts without respect, and without respect, she reacts without love, and you're in kind of this negative momentum. But when you do this and you all of a sudden you're taking responsibility and you're voicing the other person's most felt need and you're asking them to forgive you because that wasn't your intent, all of a sudden that negative motion stops. And it starts to go in a different direction, which is a positive movement, and leads us into what we call the energizing cycle, which simply says that his love motivates her respect. And then her respect motivates his love. And like I said, where the crazy cycle is this negative spinning energy, the energizing cycle takes us and spins us in this beautiful, positive way, where all of a sudden you're feeding each other in this positive energy way, which pushes the relationship so much further than you could ever think. And this week, I'm going to talk directly to the guys, the men, the good-willed husbands. And I'm going to give them some very practical and biblical truths. Now, here's the thing. Again, you could take everything that I'm talking about and you can apply this to any relationship that you have with people of the opposite sex. If you have a female boss, you could take and apply these principles with your boss. If you have a mom, which most of us have mothers, right? So you can apply this. If you have sisters, aunts, grandmas, you can apply these principles to any kind of relationship where you are in conflict or dealing with people of the opposite sex, men. Okay, next week we will talk to the ladies, right? And we're going to give you some very biblical and some practical truths about how to motivate your wife's respect. Then next week we're going to talk to the ladies, and the same thing. We're going to give you some biblical and practical ways to motivate your husband's love. Now, I know that there's some of you that think that are, where am I? Found you. Now, I know that there's some of you here that are like, by God's design, you're a pessimist. You're a glass half empty kind of people. And that's okay. I'm not okay. And you're thinking, well, couldn't my husband or my wife use this to manipulate me and not truly love me or respect me? Yes. Yes, they could. And that is a very real possibility. And I don't want to go on saying that it's not. But I promise you this, their true colors will eventually come out. Because they're trying to apply God's truth in a very negative, non-godly way. Their truth, their colors, their intentions will come out. And you have to understand that your spouse, and I'm talking to couples that are typically in normal, have good-willed spouses. You have to understand that your spouse isn't evil, that they are a good-willed person at the core of who they are. And they're not trying to do this to manipulate you. They're trying to do this because they want to change the recipe and get off this cycle. And like I said last week, and I'm not talking about relationships where one person or the other person is being physically or emotionally or mentally abused. That's a whole different story. In those cases, you need to, I hate to say it like this, you need to get out. You need to move on. You need to get help, however you need to get help. Don't stay there. But for the rest of the time together, men, I'm talking to you. Ladies, that doesn't mean you can go on Amazon. Okay? I need you to stay with me. Don't check out, okay? Because you might learn something about yourself that you didn't even know is there, something that you didn't even know that you naturally needed as a woman. So guys, there are 6 things that I'm going to talk to you and share with you that you could do to motivate your wife in your life, the women of your life, to respect you while you show them love. And they are as follows. Now, lady, no elbows. No poking, no prodding. Keep your hands to yourself. Sit on your hands if you have to, right? No hand squeezes. No I told you so's. Stop, okay? You're just going to go on the other cycle. Stop it. Because here, this morning, I'm literally trying to teach your man a new love language, a new language. And that language is the language of pink. That looks purple. Pink, like my shirt. I intentionally wore a pink shirt this morning. Okay? But I believe, guess what shirt I'm wearing next week? Blue, that's right, because I'm going to teach the ladies how to speak blue. Well, some help, okay? But I believe I'm in a room with a bunch of men who love Jesus. And they want to love you the way the Bible teaches them to love you. As they love themselves, as Christ loved the church. So here is your challenge, ladies. Show us some grace. We're not going to get this perfect overnight. Like, this isn't going to just flip a switch and change everything in your lives. But I believe most of us who are here are going to, there are going to be doors to words that they just didn't know that they could use. And you're going to hear things, and they're going to try, and they're going to move in this direction to try to love you as Christ loved the church. And here are the 6 things that we're going to talk about. And this is the very complex form, and then we're going to make it simple. And the 6 things are this. You can motivate your life's respect by when you want to be with her face to face. When you aren't, number 2, when you aren't secretly mad at her. When you empathize with her. Number 4, when you resolve and reconcile with her. When you are completely committed to her. And when you treasure her above all else. Those are 6 things that you can do to cause your wife, to motivate your wife, not cause, to motivate your wife into respecting you. Right? And in order to help you understand this, because that's a mouthful, that's a lot. If you got the Bible app, it's on there, screenshot it, we'll get there, right? Remember this word here, couple. Every lady's like, ooh, I like that word. It's a very pink word, okay? Now, obviously, it's not like this. It's actually an acrostic is what it is, and it looks more like this. Next slide. Couple. Obviously, I'm going to give you a word that lines up with every letter that goes across that way, and we're going to fill in all the pieces. Okay? Now, the reason couple is such a great word is that women typically, research shows, confront to connect. So your wife isn't coming at you to be mean, to be disrespectful. She's coming at you because she feels like there's this disconnect and she wants to reconnect with you. They think that we need to talk about problems in the relationship before we have problems to prevent the problems in the relationship. Let me say that again. Women think that they need to talk about the problems in the relationship before there are problems to prevent problems in the relationship. Now, men, we confront typically to correct. There's an issue, we're confronting you so that we can stop the issue. So we think we talk about problems when we have problems to fix the problems. And if we're talking about problems before we have problems, then we have problems. Not wrong, just different. But guys, at the core of who your wife is, she wants to be coupled with you. She wants to connect with you. I mean, Jesus said this in Matthew. Matthew wrote it down. He said, this explains why a man leaves his father and his mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. And the word here, joined, in the original Greek is kaleo, which means to glue together. To cement. You ever try to pull something together that's glued together? What happens? Typically, you take a part of each thing to the other side. So what do you think happens when your marriage is getting pulled apart? Part of you is going with her, part of him is going with it. It's just, you are joined together as one flesh. And your wife will continue to seek you out and feel like you are, until she feels that you guys are glued together again. She is confronting to connect. She is not confronting to correct you. So couple. The C stands for closeness. Closeness. When you want to be with her face to face. When you want to be with her face to face. What does that mean, John? That's like speaking another language, right? Research shows that they did a study where they took groups of men and groups of women together, different age groups, from wee little ones to big ones like us, okay? And in every case, except for the little boys like Conrad little boys, in every case, the men would walk into this room, and now these are best friends. Let me clear that up. These are two people that know each other, done life together. In every case, the men, when they walked into the room, sat in the chairs wherever the chairs were. In every case, with the exception of the little ones who just started acting like airplanes and G.I. Joe shooting things in the air, because that's what we do. Every case, with the exception of the little girls, who did the same thing, but they did it on the floor instead of the chairs. In every case, the women both grabbed their chairs, turned them to where they were face to face looking at each other. In every case. So there's this need for women to be face to face to connect. In Genesis chapter 29, it says this: then she became pregnant a third time and gave birth to another son, and he was named Levi, for she said, surely this time my husband will feel affection for me. So she had this desire for him to feel affection, and trust me, I love the fact that I learned this from Sharon and Brent. Kids don't fix your marital issues. They don't. In fact, they're probably going to cause you more, okay? But she thought, at this case, she felt like the kid was going to, she was so desperate for affection, she thought the kid was going to bring the affection to her. Song of Solomon says this: when I found my love, I caught and held on to him tightly. She wanted to be so close. There was this need in her just to be so close, to be connected, to be glued together. And that's how God designed her. There's nothing wrong with it. But here's the thing, when you get this wrong, the Bible can tell us what happens when you get this wrong. Proverbs 7, she was the brash, rebellious type, never content to stay at home. Because she's trying to connect and you won't connect with her. So she's not going to stay there and feel like she's disconnected. She's going to go find connection. So what are some things that you can do to help your wife feel like you two are still glued together? And now this is not an exhaustive list. And guys, if you're married to a wife who does lists like I am, don't be surprised when you get one. Okay? This is 8 years old. When me and Carol first went through Love and Respect, I got my couples list. And I have not let this go, and this has saved me many a times. Don't be surprised when you get your list. Don't take it as disrespectful. She just wants to connect. So here are just a few things to help you feel like your wife, to help your wife feel close to you. First thing, hold her hand. Wow, what a concept. That literally, when you hold your wife's hand, you're coupled. Give them a hug. Good Lord, guys. I think I get more hugs here from dudes than some of you might hug your wives. It's wrong. Not that I don't want your hugs. I mean, I'm all about the hugs, but come on. Hug your wife. The sister needs some love too. Here's a big one. Be affectionate without sexual intentions. You can do that? Yeah. And here's the hard one for us, because this is so foreign to us, guys. You guys need to set time aside to be face to face with your wife. To let her cry, to let her vent, to let her talk. Don't check out and don't open your mouth. We'll get to that too. O. C is for closeness. O is for openness. When you aren't secretly mad at her. Guys, we like to compartmentalize. We like to take emotions, put them into little boxes, and then store them on a shelf. And we don't open that box. I'll get to that in a minute. And the problem is, your wife is looking for you to be open. And when you are sitting there compartmentalized, this is what it looks like. You can put that picture back up there. You're sitting there compartmentalized. You're putting your boxes on the shelf. She's feeling like you're secretly mad at her. And she's wondering, is he thinking of another girl? Is he thinking about his ex-girlfriend? And he's probably thinking about the car, because there's a sound happening in the car and he doesn't know what's going on. But guys, literally, that's what happens. You are sitting there putting all your things into your shelf, compartmentalizing your emotions. And she's thinking you're secretly mad at her when all you're trying to do is not let your emotions out so she doesn't think you're mad at her. But you putting your emotions on the shelf is making her think you're mad at her because you're not being open with her. Colossians, Paul again wrote this to the church at Colossae. He said, husbands, love your wives and do not be bitter towards them. The words you use, the lack of words you use can make them feel like you're being bitter towards them. In Judges, Old Testament, it says that then her husband arose and went after her to do what? Speak kindly to her and bring her home, bring her back. There's a thing that happens when you are open and your words are kind and gentle and loving. That sounds like fruits of the Spirit. What? And again, if you can't find a way to be open and talk about your emotions, the Bible tells us what can happen there too. Ready? Proverbs 21:19. It's better to live alone in a desert than with a quarrelsome, complaining wife. But when you're not open with your wife, guess what she's going to be? Quarrelsome and complaining because she wants to connect. But you're too busy stuffing all your boxes on your shelf and never opening them. And then she becomes quarrelsome, she becomes complaining, she becomes nagging. Pick your word, whatever you like to use. And again, it's not because she's confronting you to connect. She wants to be coupled. She wants to be glued together. And you're like, I don't like that box. We're going to leave it there. So how do you do this? What does this look like? Again, this is not an exhaustive list. Number one, share your feelings. What? Open a box. Explore it together. Because every once in a while, there's these things in your past that your wife wants to try to understand. Like some of the conversations me and Carol had to have about me and my post-traumatic stress dealing with the fact that I almost died in Iraq. How do I make somebody that's never been there understand that? But she wanted to unpack that and explore that with me to try to understand because she wanted to connect. And maybe sharing your feelings or your thoughts on a spiritual insight is another thing that you can do to help feel your, like, oh my God, I was reading the Bible and it's like, duh. Couldn't believe it. Right? She loves when you come home and you tell her about your day and your challenges. She might not understand what you do for a living. Carol has no clue what I talk about when I talk about electrical stuff. None. But she loves hearing about it. And here's the hardest one for me. Probably going to be the hardest one for most of you guys. You need to talk to your wife without harshness, guardedness, or grunting. You have to formulate actual words. We're not cavemen anymore, guys. Come on. You can use words to describe what you're feeling. That's okay. So C is closeness. O is openness. U is understanding. When you empathize with her, to get back to the whole face-to-face and not talking, Men in here typically are Mr. Fix-Its. Any Mr. Fix-Its in here? I'm a Mr. Fix-It, right? So they're coming at you and they're complaining, they're talking, and you want to fix all the things that they're talking about. And the funny thing is if you give her long enough, what ends up happening, because we get really confused when you're in conversation with women, she starts talking about this, and then it goes here, and it goes here, and then it goes here, and you're like, what? And at this point, you've checked out because you're completely confused on what's going on, and she starts what they call spider webbing. And you're lost. You have no clue what story she's telling you, because it started off talking about your next door neighbor, and now you're talking about the guy at the pet store. What? Here's the thing, guys. If you give your wife long enough, she will connect all the dots and come back to the original point that she was talking to you about. She doesn't want you to fix the problem. She already knows how to do that. She just wants you to listen to her. 1 Peter, God, the guy who denied Jesus, and the first time he preached after they were filled with the Holy Spirit, 3,000 people gave their life to Jesus. Crazy, right? Peter. In the same way, he says this, chapter 3, 1 Peter 3:7. In the same way, husbands, give honor to your wives and treat your wife with what? Understanding. As you live together. She may be weaker than you are, but she is your equal partner in God's gift of new life. Treat her as you would so that your prayers will not be hindered. That's a message in itself, guys. So how do you live in understanding with your wife? How do you make your wife feel understood and empathize with her emotions so that your prayers will not be hindered? First, know when she wants you to listen and when she wants you to shut up. Here's a simple question. Are you looking for me to fix it or just listen? And when she says just listen, don't check out. And you want to know a good way? Like that can literally, that one question could save you a spin on the crazy cycle. Are you looking for me to listen, or do you need my advice on how to fix it? And the fact that he's a fixer is not a problem, and we'll talk about that next week. Because she probably already knows how to fix it. She just wants you to listen to her. She wants to feel like you understand and empathize with what she's going through. You just need to give her your ear to process the information and get there to the thing that you already know the answer is, maybe, for themselves. She just wants you to listen. Every once in a while she's talking to you, repeat what she says so she knows you're listening to her. Women have this theory. If you're not looking, you're not what? Listening. Let that sink in, guys. If you're not looking, you're not listening. Carol can attest to this. She can be talking and talking and talking. I'm never looking at her. She goes, "Are you listening to me?" And I repeat everything she said. She goes, "I hate you." Okay? It happens. She doesn't actually say she hates me, but it's like, because I'm not looking at her. Okay? And the last one is huge. Express appreciation for her contributions and roles by saying as simple as, "I couldn't do what you do." Let me give you an example of this one. In August, Carol was in the hospital for 9 days with COVID. I wanted to quit being a dad. I literally don't know how she does what she does. I don't. 9 days, and I was work and not work and losing my mind. And I couldn't be more appreciative for what Carol does after 9 days of having to do it myself. Couldn't be. So C is closeness, O is openness, U is understanding, P is peacemakers. Peacemakers. When you resolve and reconcile with her. Guys, we have a tendency to do this. When we're in conflict and everything's okay, we like to say, just drop it. right? Which, ladies, we'll explain that to you next week, okay? There's a counterpart to all of these, just so you know. It's both sides of the coin, okay? Ladies like to go full circle. They like to have the issues, have the conflict, talk about it, resolve and reconcile, and then start all over again. They like to go for circle. They don't want you to just say, drop it, we're done, because you're not being a peacemaker. 1 Corinthians 7 says, but if you do get married, it's not a sin. And if a young woman gets married, it's not a sin. However, those who get married at this time will have trouble. And I'm trying to spare you the problems. So Paul's saying if you get married, you're going to have problems. Like, that's inevitable. Pink, blue, ain't going to work. You're going to have problems. I'm trying to equip you guys with things, language, and words to use to help you change your perspective to see things pink. Paul to Ephesians said, and furthermore, this is the beginning of the whole thing that we're talking about. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. There's this thing that happens when there's mutual submission. When you are submitted to your wife, and she's submitted to you, where this weird thing happens, and the problems and the peacekeeping can be, I'm going to submit to Carol and defer to what she needs. Why? Because I have reverence for Christ. I'm going to defer to what God wants me to do. Why wouldn't I defer to what Carol wants me to do? We're one flesh. Makes no sense. So here's some practical applications that you can use to help your wife understand that you're trying to be a peacekeeper. The first one hurts. Men, admit when you're wrong. Because you are wrong, whether you like it or not. And then follow that up with an apology. It was like, you know what, you're right. I'm sorry that I pushed the issue. Come on, how many of you have ever been in a fight with your wife and you realized that you were wrong and they were right and you still pushed the fact until they admitted that you were right? Yeah. But you were wrong. Yes, you were. So anyways, you have to admit it. Every once in a while, you got to stop and you have to admit, look, I'm wrong. I apologize. I'm sorry. You were right. I did do that. I did overspend on that game for the third time this month. I'm sorry. Okay? Here's another way of doing it. Keep your relationship up to date. Resolve the unresolved, and don't say, just forget about it. Go full circle. If you know there's a problem, talk about the problems so that she can express her feelings, so that she feels loved, and then there can be reconciliation and resolving. Go full circle in a positive energy kind of way. Another one is pray together. Pray together, especially after a hurtful time. I love that Brent and Sharon do this more often than I can even tell you. I know they do. They talk to me about it all the time. They're like, they have, there's things, they get into some kind of disagreement, they go on a spin on the crazy cycle, but then they come together and they pray even when they're in the middle of a fight. How many of you want to pray with your wife or husband when you're in the middle of a fight? God, it's amazing. I can't even believe to tell you guys how awesome it is that they can do that. Right? And here's another one, guys. Tell your wife the truth, even if it might hurt her. Don't keep secrets. Don't keep secrets. Because at the end of the day, she's going to love you more for telling her the truth than if you try to hide it from her. Because if she knows the truth, then there can be reconciliation and resolving. Right? So if you struggle with pornography, tell her the truth. Yes, there might be conflict, there might be troubles, but she's going to turn around and be able to walk and help you walk through that fight. It's a fight, it's a struggle. C.O.U.P.L.E is for loyalty. Loyalty. She needs to feel that you are completely committed to her and her alone. Job 31:1 says this, I made a covenant with my eyes not to look with lust at a young woman. Why, Job? Why would you do something like that? Because I'm loyal to my wife. And if I'm looking around at women, whether it's while I'm driving down the highway, whether it's looking at stuff on the internet, whatever it might be, if I'm looking at other women that are not my wife, she is not going to feel that I'm being loyal to her. That's one of the most devastating things about pornography when it comes to men. They don't feel you are being loyal to her, and it's not even a real person. But there's this thing that happens. Your eyes are not focused on your wife, who you made a covenant with. In Malachi 2, it says this, you cried out, when does the Lord accept my worship? Or why doesn't the Lord accept my worship? I tell you why. Because the Lord witnessed the vows you made and your wife made when you were young. But you have been unfaithful to her. Though she remains your faithful partner, the wife of your marriage vows, didn't the Lord make you one with your wife? Both body and spirit are his, and what does he want? He wants godly children from the union. So guard your heart. Remain loyal to your wife of your youth. For I hate divorce, says the Lord, the God of Israel. To divorce your wife is to overwhelm her with cruelty, says the Lord of heaven's armies. So guard your heart and do not be unfaithful to your wife. And guess what? When your wife feels unloyal, Proverbs tells us what happened. Proverbs 2. She has abandoned her husband and ignores the covenant she made before God. Your wife has this desperate need to know that she is the most important thing in your life, that you are fully committed to her and her alone. Because they feel like their husbands aren't loyal. What do? They're going to go find somebody that is going to be loyal to them. So how do you show them loyalty? How do you show them that you are loyal to them and them alone? The first one is a no-brainer. Don't look at other women. Real or not real. Whether it's online, whether it's real people in the mall, stop it. This was such a big thing for me because of my issues with pornography. I will not eat at Hooters or Wing House. I won't. I love their food. I'll go pick it up and bring it home, but I will not sit in those restaurants because it's just like, really? What else are you supposed to look at? The TVs? They make that almost impossible too. So that's something I decided. Me and Carol decided, I cannot, Carol, eat. I know you love their wings, so I'll go pick them up for you. But I cannot eat there. You can also add to that, don't talk about other women more than you talk about your wife. That's probably a no-brainer, but don't do that. If you're talking about another relationship more than you're talking about the relationship with your wife, you're probably going to have issues. She's not feeling like you're being loyal to her. Include her when you are around friends and family, and only say positive words about her. Don't air your dirty laundry in front of your whole family and all your friends. Go home and unpack that box with her because she wants to do that anyways. Right? And here's one off of my list. Wear your wedding band. Mine fell off. I don't even know where it's at. It's good, it's a silicone one. I got a pack of 6 at home. I'm good. Just put a new one on when I get home. I literally put a different one. I put a blue one on this morning because I was wearing pink and I was a guy, so I wore the blue one. Anyways, trying to figure this out as an electrician was hard. Before silicone was. I had a white gold ring that I loved. I never took it off. I didn't want to take it off after we went through love and respect. But as an electrician working with electricity, I don't want to have a metal ring on my finger when I'm working with electricity. Probably not a good mix. So I had to figure out how this looked. So I literally would take it off and I'd hang it on my rearview mirror, and when I'd get back in my car, I'd put it back on. Before I even started my car, I would put my wedding band back on. Then I'd take it off when I got to work, and then I'd put it back on. Like I literally had to figure out how am I going to wear my wedding band all the time as much as I can and still be an electrician without getting shocked or electrocuted, death by electricity. Okay? I didn't want to die. Like me, I don't want to die. Right? So you got to navigate that. Like if you don't wear your wedding ring, wear it. Here's a good one. Hold her hand in public. You are literally visually declaring that she is yours and you are hers by simply holding her hand. Sounds simple, but really think about it. When was the last time you held your wife's hand in public? Walking through the mall. The last is E. So we have closeness, openness, understanding, peacekeeping, loyalty. And E is for esteem. Esteem. She needs to know that you treasure her above all else. The one part of the marriage vows, if you did traditional marriage vows, that us guys miss, is the part where he says, I will love and cherish you till death do us part. Love and cherish. Well, I'm trying to help you understand what the love that she needs is. The cherish part is where we fall short. How does she know that you cherish her above all? How does that part of the vows? Again, going back to 1 Peter 3:7, again, husbands, in the same way, be considerate as you live with your wives, and treat them with respect as the weaker partner, and as joint heirs with the gracious gift of life, so that nothing will hinder your prayers. The word respect here in the Greek is a really good word for how to cherish your wife. And it means this, to honor them by the reason of the rank or state of office in which they hold. She is your wife. She is your one flesh. She is your partner forever. You are glued together. You are cemented together. And based off of this verse, because of that position as being one flesh with you, she earned the right for your respect. For you to speak positive words of life to her, to cherish her, to build her up. Proverbs 31 says, her children arise and call her blessed, and her husband also, he praises her. There's something happens, guys, when you start just telling your wife, like, how much you love them, how much you esteem, how much you cherish their time together. So what does that look like? How do you esteem your wife? How do you tell her that you are hers and hers alone and make her feel like you are just completely committed to her? Here's one. You can verbally honor her and support her in front of the kids. Even if you're fighting. Telling your kids how much you love and esteem. Thank you, Carol, for cooking dinner, even though you had 4 kids that you were trying to take care of at home. Thank you for taking the time to cook dinner. Pretty simple. You can praise her for what she is doing. Carol takes care of 4 kids. She's a stay-at-home mom. 4 kids by herself. 2 of which are in homeschool classes, not at the home. Gymnastics, swim class, it's amazing. And I love the fact that I get to praise her from up here. Ha! You don't. I just get that super honor. It's amazing what Carol does. Praise her for what she is doing, guys. Here's a good one, and we don't like this one. Value her opinion in the gray areas. Remembering that she isn't wrong, she's just different. And in those times where which way do we go? It's kind of a gray spot. value her opinion, ask her opinion, and then value it. I can't tell you how many times we're doing something here at the church that pertains to us, what we do as a church. We're both the pastors of this church. It's not just me, okay? Carol, what do you think? Because I'm stuck. I don't know. And she speaks so much truth into my life. Like when I was angry at my boss, she would speak. Like I didn't even want to talk to her because I knew what was going to happen. It's like Jonah and the whales. Like Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh because he knew God was going to save the city instead of condemning it the way so he just ran away. It's like, I don't want to talk to you because I know what you're going to do. You're going to make sense of the whole situation, and I don't like that. Stop, value her opinion so that you can build the esteem that you need so that she feels loved to motivate her respect towards you. So guys, there it is. That's how you can start to turn the negative energy of the crazy cycle, that without love, she reacts without respect. Turning that into the positive energy of the energizing circle, that your love motivates her respect. That you can motivate your wife's respect. And your love can change every aspect of your marriage. If you're willing to be coupled to your wife, if you're willing to be close, if you're willing to be open, if you're willing to be understanding, willing to be a peacekeeper, if you're willing to be loyal to her and her alone, and if you're willing to speak true life and esteem her above everybody else. That has the ability and the power to change the entire direction of your relationship with your wife. That has the power to change the whole direction of any relationship you have with any woman in your life. But you have to start. You have to start now. Guys, be the mature one. Own your part and pour out your love. And always remember, we love her because he first loved us. We are told to love our wives the way that Christ loved the church. Let's pray. Father, I thank you. I thank you that your word is still alive today, that your word gives us truth on how to love our wives the way that you love the church. That is perfectly clear. There's no gray areas, Father. How to be close to our wives, to be open with our wives, to be understanding of our wives, that they're not wrong, they're just different. That we are going to be the peacemakers in our relationships. We're going to be loyal to them and to them alone. And we're going to esteem them above every other person in our lives. And we're going to do it because at the end of the day, Jesus, you told us to love our wives as you love the church. And women, we're going to help you understand when we say that we would die for you, what that means. I mean, Jesus said, greater love has no man than one who's willing to lay down his life for his brother. He's willing to die for you. And you're like, yeah, I wish he would die, but I really wish he would go get a job. But the deepest cry of his heart is to let you know that he does love you. He just doesn't know how to say it. So we thank you for the truth on how to show men how to love their wives. Through the words of coupling with them, to be coupled. That they are one flesh, they are glued together, that they cannot be pulled apart without part of each other going with the other person. It can happen. So we thank you for the truth that your word brings into our relationships. I thank you for the Holy Spirit speaking to the men in this room. And I thank you for the wives who are going to go home and make the list to give to their husbands. Because sometimes we need that reminder. And Father, right now I just speak to every man here. Step up. Step up. I challenge you to change your perspective, to see things through the lens of pink. I always used to say real men don't wear pink. I don't agree with that no more. I want to see through pink. I want to hear through pink. I want to speak pink. Because I want my wife to know that I love her. So I challenge you to step up and wear pink, speak pink, see pink, hear pink. Hear the deepest cry of what your wife needs as who God created her to be. When she starts to confront you and you feel like she's nagging you or being inconsiderate of who you are as a person, realize that she's just trying to connect. Give us the wisdom and understanding of what that looks like, Jesus. Holy Spirit, work in every man's life here to see their wives the way that you see them. To see them with the eyes, only her with the eyes that you see them with. Give us the ears to hear your voice saying, look, she's not trying to correct you. She's trying to connect with you. And then give us the courage to move towards reconciliation and resolving, to go full circle.